using our sense of the world to make sense of the world, achieving world peace through individual strength, waking your worlds up physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again every morning at 5:30 a.m. PST. Why? To feel better. Objectively. How's that even possible? With the help of our only no nonsense podcast brought to you through your best feeling network. This is Pagawan. Good morning. Good morning! I hope you are having a fantastic morning, afternoon, night, whatever you are doing, wherever you are, whenever thou art. I hope you are ready to stretch your self-awareness like a muscle today with us. Good morning. It is 5:48 a.m. on Wednesday, August 4th, 2021. Can you believe it already? August 4th, 2021. Today, intellectuals. We talk about how intellectualism and intellectuals might actually destroy the world on Warfare Wednesday and what we can do about it. Good morning, everybody! Get your ass up. Have a great day. For that host, heard you like. Good morning. Are we jumping out of bed? Are we kicking those blankets off? Kicking the sheets off, or are we feeling like we want to just chill a little bit longer? What is the vibe today? Are we actually in public right now? Or are we in private? Are we feeling good in private? What are we here to do on Pagawan? Always to make you feel so good from the inside out. And how do we do that? Starting every day feeling so good, better than your morning would feel without. If you would, please join me in pretending for a second that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. Like, don't even think about breathing in and out or anything like that. Don't even think about nothing else. Just like pretend with me for a second. It's a little magic trick. Pretend that there's a little candle in front of your lips. Look, 1 or 2 inches in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Pretend that there's a little candle, a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. About yay far. And then leave your swallowing muscles alone as you're doing so. And to just observe your sense of self as this happens. Again, one more time, I invite you to pretend with me that there's a lit candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Think about breathing, exhaling, inhaling. Just leave your swallowing muscles alone. And just observe your sense of self. Again, please pretend that there's a lit candle in front of the lips. A couple inches in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Simply observe your sense of self as you, one more time with me, pretend that there is a candle in front of the lips. One more time with me. Pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. To leave your swallowing muscles alone. And just observe with me. Your only no-nonsense podcast, your first podcast in 3D. Just observe with me. One more time, would you please pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. Just observe your sense of self as you leave your swollen muscles alone. Now, what's that like, intellectuals? Today, on Warfare Wednesday, as we're stretching our self-awareness like a muscle every morning, how are you? We're talking about intellectuals today on Warfare Wednesday. Everybody wants to be an intellectual, right? Intellectualism's so good, right? Feels so good for the body, right? Intellectualism's so good, right? Not a bad thing at all, right? Not a bad thing at all, this intellectualism. You don't want to be an intellectual. You all want those fantastic grades. You all want that fantastic intellect, which is associated with all these nice things, right? Like iPhones, like internets, like video games, like technology, ability to create artificial food so we can have world hunger or make people feel ever so good about themselves. What's wrong with being an intellectual? How can intellectualism destroy the world, Herbie? What are you talking about? How can intellectualism destroy the world? Intellectualism is such a good thing, Herbie. That's what we're here to do. We curb our passions by being intellectual, right? We become better human beings by being intellectual, right? Isn't that how we become better intellectuals? I mean, isn't that better how we become better human beings? By being intellectuals, right? What do you mean intellectual is a bad thing on Warfare Wednesday? On Warfare Wednesday, on Pal Go On, with your host Herbie. Intellectualism. What's wrong with that? Everybody wants to have good grades. Everybody wants to be an intellectual. How might that destroy the world? Well, what is intellectualism? Is it just being smart? Is it just being smart? Well, don't we have other words like wise to describe that? Don't we have other words like experienced to describe stuff like that too? How about virtuous? What is intellectualism exactly? Before we even argue, hey, it's gonna destroy the world or it's not gonna destroy the world. What the hell even is intellectualism? What does it even mean to be an intellectual in today's society, 2021? What does that mean? What does that mean? What is intellectual? What is an intellectual? Have you ever heard that? Like going throughout life, have you ever cared about that? Have you ever cared about being an intellectual? Have you ever noticed an attitude towards intellectualism? Aren't we all just trying to feel happy? What's the point of life? Hit you with that right in the morning, as we're all just waking up groggy, wiping our eyes and looking around at the world anew. Yeah, being smart's nice. But what are we here to do? To be happy. What is life if not searching for joy, searching for love? Intellectualism. Would you rather be loved or would you rather be intellectual? Would you rather know love or would you rather intellectualize love? Even when you talk about the word intellectual, it's so funny how elusive it is, despite how it talks about knowing. Intellectualism is about knowing, right? Like, it's often associated with science, though the word intellectual is not always necessarily used in proper context to describe something scientific. Not in these days, but intellectualism. What are we here to do on Earth? To break things down? Why do we break things down with intellect? Ultimately, what were we trying to do? To be happy? Maybe. What's the point of life? To feel good. To be happy. You might say, oh, okay, struggle, struggle, struggle. Well, eventually to not be struggling, right? Don't we struggle so that we can save ourselves of unnecessary struggling in the future? Don't we make certain struggles for now because we have the wisdom from previous lifetimes, or other people telling us from previous lifetimes, or history books, or whatever. It's knowledge that has been transferred from a past. We see how we can reduce unnecessary suffering, quote unquote, by potentially sticking to suffering here and now, manageable suffering, to prevent unmanageable suffering in the future, right? What are we here to do? What are we on Earth here to do? We already know what we're here to feel so good from the inside out on Padawan, right? As we are always allowing these words to go in one ear and out the other, and observe our sense of self as this happens. Or, if you would with me, one more time, pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out, and to leave your swallowing muscles alone, and to observe how that feels from the inside out. From within. From within. From within. Intellectuals look at stuff without. An intellectual mindset is looking at stuff without. Scrutinizing something without the body, without the self, looking at it so detail-oriented that it's without the self. It is without, as opposed to what? Within. Examining stuff without, as in without the what? Without the self, as opposed to examining stuff from within, which is into the self. Like, let's say there's an infinity of the universe that starts at your skin and then goes outward. That's the infinity of the universe that we look at constantly, and we're constantly wanting all these things in the universe, right? Oh, we want to go to the moon. We want to go to Mars. We want to create this invention. We want to eat all of that food. We want to travel those places. We know those things by looking at the skin outwards, right? It's without the self. Most of the things that we do in life today, we look at it in perspective of without the self. We look at the world without. The intellectuals look at the world without, as opposed to looking at the infinity, as there also is an infinity of an entire universe that begins at the skin going within. That's within the world that we do not see but completely operate within, right? We completely operate within that within spectrum, that within world, yet we desire all these things in the without world, and we construct our entire personalities and our desires off of this without world. This without world. This world that exists outside of our skin looking out, which we can place and see and visualize and understand in a very limited and finite sense, as in the outside world. Herbie is here. In the outside world, that screen that you're looking at, that phone that you're looking at is right there, and it can only be there, which means it's nowhere else, right? That food that's right in front of you means it's right there, and it's nowhere else. As in, you cannot have your cake and eat it too, right? Because on the outside world, in the world without, things are defined by the space and time that they're in, only there and then. It's very limited. That object that you have right in front of you, that table, is there because it's necessarily not anywhere else, right? It cannot be in two places at once. It cannot be in three places at once. Unlike your attention to your own body. Is that not true? From within. The information without is defined by the things that it is not, as in, you know that that table in front of you is that table because it is not the table next to you. There are different objects, and that table is always going to be there, just like you are right in front of that table, or you are right in front of this TV, or you are right in front of this fridge that you're staring at while listening to me, while allowing these words to go in one ear, not the other. The fact that you are there right now is defined by the fact that you are not anywhere else right now in the universe. You can only be there at one time, in that one spot, and that those objects around you, you can only see them in that one spot because they are nowhere else. Otherwise, you'd be like in this big cloud malaise where everything is everything at all at once, and that's impossible. In the outside world and the world without, in the world that intellectuals look at, in the world without the self, because our intellect is bigger than ourselves, right? As they promote. When you look at the world without, You're looking at a limited world, a finite world, right? A world where that screen, even the sound of this podcast is happening in that world without for you, as you were allowing these words to go in one ear and out the other, establishing meaning for yourself in the within world. But even this podcast and the way that you're listening to it exists on the without world, the world without the self, right? As in, it can only be here. It's nowhere else right now. These specific vibrations in the air right now that you're touching, they're making this sound waves for you, exist only here because they don't exist anywhere else. There might be copies, but the one that you're listening to right now, affecting you right now, exists only here, right now, in this outside world, but in the world without, only exists right here and right now. It exists here, and you know that it exists here because you know that it's, because you see that it's here, which means it is not there. You see what I'm saying? Why is that significant? Why is it significant that in the world without, things are just chilling out there and they're limited and they're defined by the space and time that they inhabit? Well, because in the world without, the one that we're looking at, it is defined by all those limitations that it has. The fact that it can only be in one place at one time. But your body, can you not feel your left thumb right now with your finger? And then also tap your right toe on the floor. Can you not rub your left fingers together? Can you not rub your left thumb and your index fingers together? And then tap your right toe on the floor. And can you not experience both of those in your awareness, your inside awareness, your within awareness, your awareness in your within world? Can you not feel that simultaneously in a way that you cannot have two things at once in the without world? Can your attention not be on two things and hold those two things and bring them to one spot in a way that's impossible in the without world? Isn't that possible within the world? Within the within world, the inside world. Aren't you able to be in two places at once? Possibly move the feeling of your right toe and embrace it into the entire experience of your whole body, or separate it into its own feeling and compartmentalize your feeling of your big toe and make it feel like a separate part of the body. Again, aren't you able to embrace, integrate the feeling of your right toe more to be part of the body as part of the whole? And then aren't you able to feel your whole body organized as an entire body that can be separated into parts, which your right toe is now part of? Isn't your self-awareness able to stretch and mend itself, stretch and mold itself like that? Isn't it possible for your body to feel and experience things that it cannot see in simultaneous ways? In ways that the world without cannot. The world outside. In the world within, where everything is true, aren't you able to put the idea of 5 billion chairs fitting in the same spot if you wanted to, regardless of gravity, not limited by whether or not they can exist within one another, not limited by physical limitations that exist in the world without? The world within can construct entire sequences and scenes in our head that are mere impossibilities. Complete impossibilities within the grasp of our physical without self. Our physical form on the outside world. The world without. In the world without, where the skin starts going out, that infinity where the skin and where you end, go into infinity. The world without versus the world within, where your skin starts going within towards your center, deeper and deeper and deeper, and you can always get closer and closer and closer and closer, right? As it's an infinity world in there as well, where you can fit an entire universe, as in the entire ideas of a universe, the entire visualization of a universe. And is that the same as a universe? Well, maybe. Because what is observing the universe? Once you were able to, say you were able to become a superhero and make it to this crazy outside land where you're floating in space and you're just Superman, you can see the entire world. How do you know you saw the entire world? Doesn't it get logged in your body? Doesn't it get logged into your experience like a computer? Doesn't it get logged into your brain? Doesn't exist into your body? Doesn't all of your experience in your lifetime now exist into your bodies? It gets logged into your brain, gets logged into your memory, gets logged into your muscle memory, it gets logged into your physical, your body's memories of itself, your muscles, all sorts of kinesthetic associations being created. Don't they get logged in your body? How do we know that those things happened to you? You're experiencing them through your body, right? How do you know you went to Disneyland? How do you know you went underwater? Well, didn't your body experience light waves? Didn't your body experience physical temperature changes? Didn't your body experience texture changes? Didn't your body experience all of these things that you now claim as your experience? So if they exist within your body, and if you can experience them within, isn't that half the equation? Isn't that the world itself? Isn't the universe only possible by the observers within the universe? Isn't the universe only able to be experienced by an observer? So you have the observed universe, and then you have the observer. And when the observer checks out the universe, it gets logged and it gets understood through the observer. So where's the world really happening? In the observer or in the world? So why is that important? That the inside world is so different than the outside world, that's within world is so different than the without world. As in, the without world is defined by all these limitations: space, time, and gravity, life, death. And this inside world is unmarred by that. It's a world where everything is true, right? In this inside world, in this within. Not limited by these concepts of space, time, life, and death, gravity. This inside world is not limited by those things. This within world is not limited by those those outside world limitations. And so in the inside world, the universe not only exists, but as we know, is a lot more unwieldy on the inside world. Not only does the universe that we know it to be outside exist on the inside world, but it's much more fantastical. It's much more close to our actual desires on the inside world. Our inside world constructs our world that we experience. Our outside world exists. We live in this outside world, but it gets processed and understood and appreciated and loved or hated through our inside world. Stronger. Much stronger. As if you can feel some type of way on the outside. As we know, the inside world amplifies everything from ideas to thoughts to emotions, because you are not limited by things like space, time, life, and death, and gravity. So on the inside world, everything is amplified. Including this love thing. The inside world, everything is amplified. On the inside world, everything is amplified, including our relationship with all of these things, with the world that we create on this inside world. Not only are the concepts that we have with the inside world stronger and more robust and crazier because they're not marred by the limitations of the outside world, as in your imagination, your relationship with the world as it is, as you see it, your relationship with the different cities and towns and faces and things that inspire you in life, your relationship with those things. Not only are they being processed and held on the inside world and held with you and inspiring you, or creating fear, or inspiring you, or creating love within you. Not only are they happening in the inside world, but even your processor of that information is within this outside world. So even your so even your machine that's processing all of this information is being unmarred, is being unlimited by space, time, gravity, and life and death. So not just the world that you see, not just the physical world that's created out there, but our inner world. But our inner world is this stronger commanding force of a world builder, creating relationships within our heads as we not only take in all of these basic visual and very basic, shallow front layer information like visuals and audios and touch, taste, sounds. But once those are integrated into our brain itself is constructing worlds by creating relationships with all of those, creating relationships and meaning from all those senses happening at different times, and relationship with when they're happening and how they're happening, creating all these meanings behind these objective things that are happening to you on the outside. Our brain is creating all these meanings in there. So not only are these objects and where they are placed and how they are defined in our head are unmarred by logic and time, space, gravity, life, and death, but even the meaning behind what objects are being created is unmarred by life, time, death, gravity on the inside world. This is within world. Is there any wonder? Is there any wonder crazy marvels like architecture in Singapore, architecture in New York? Is there any wonder why media can just get so ridiculous? Is there any wonder why anime and cartoons still resonate with us despite being so exaggerated and ridiculous? Because don't they actually speak closer to a truer world that exists within our brains, which are able to construct way more worlds than we can see on the physical plane? But yet, aren't they all true? Isn't that why all these cartoons, anime, movies, music, isn't that why they resonate with us? Because they are closer to truth. We can understand them well because they speak truer languages to us. They speak closer to our true language. So aren't we able to understand all these things across borders, across generations, across nations, across towns, across distances, across time, even across eras? We're able to understand these different worlds of art. You know, you're looking at different storybooks, you look at cartoons, you look at like classic art, you look at classic music. Temporally, across time, we are able to appreciate worlds that were created from within these human minds. Well, is it the human minds creating these worlds, or is it these human minds interpreting these outside worlds for infinity amount of potential? Which one really is it? Which one really is it? This inside world. This inside world. So incredibly intense and powerful. Intellectuals looking at the world without. So what is looking at the world within? What does it mean to be, quote unquote, intellectual in the world within? What is the analogous thing to be intellectualized, but towards within, as in towards the infinity of things on the inside, as in when intellectuals are looking at the world right now, what do? We examine the world without the self. Why? Why do we look at the world without the self like intellectuals do? Well, to help the self, right? We separate ourselves from the things in the world so that we can look at them more quote unquote objectively, so that we could do better for the selves in the future. And so we subtract ourselves, look at the world without, in order to try to calculate and try to take into account for what we see in the without world to keep ourselves safe from the without world. Isn't that what intellectualism is? Aren't we analyzing the world without, so that we can prepare and anticipate for something that could happen to the world within? Intellectuals might destroy the world. Why? Because they're looking at the world without, and they're trying to account for the world within. Well, which one gives you way more information? Which one are we able to access and actually integrate more into our experience, the world without, where things are limited and finite and we can see only things from our individual vantage point, or by looking and enforcing the ability to engage with the world within, where things are not marred by logic, reason, time, space, age. Which one are we able to engage more with? The concepts on the without world, in the outside world, where we can see from this limited vantage point? Or are we able to assess and gather more and integrate more of life's information by looking within, where we are not marred by logic, we are not marred by space, time, life, death, and gravity? Again, which one do we get the most out of? Which one do we suck the most juice of? Which one do we get more power out of? Which one do we get more information out of? Which one are we able to which one are we able to enjoy more? Which one are we able to truly feel more? The world on the outside or the world within? Which one are we truly able to get the most out of and integrate most into our human experience and know the most? The world without, out there, where we are constructing patterns based on logic and reasoning that are only applicable and out there, that also define and limit all these things? Or do we get more of our superpower, and do we get more out of, or do we get more actual useful information to our human experience by looking within, where things are not only where the objective world is held and understood on the inside world, but also chosen to create metaphor and meaning in a way that's unmarred by space, time, gravity, age, life, and death, and space and time and gravity and life and death. Isn't that machine on the inside unmarred by those limitations? Isn't that machine closer to somewhere that we would get the most information out of? Isn't that where we'd get the most juice? Isn't that where we'd get the most strength? Is intellectualism strength, or is it fear? The desire, the spruced up ability to look at the world without, is that a strength or a fear? The spruced up ability to look at the world without, with all kinds of scrutiny and being super detail oriented, by looking at the world without, is that fear? Or is that strength? Intellectualism. Intellectuals. Looking out there at the world without, is that fear or is that strength? If you would please pretend with me that there is a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out, and to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Again, one more time, if you would with me, please pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone. One more time, if you would please pretend with me that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone. I got a better one for you guys. Are you ready? I want to leave you with a question before we go on break. Is intellectualism designed to improve movement or designed to stifle movement? Is intellectualism designed to improve movement or to stifle movement? One more time. Is intellectualism designed to improve movement or to stifle movement? We'll be right back. Thank you so much. We'll be right back. Wow, using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. World peace through individual strength, world peace through individual inner peace. Waking the worlds up physically, mentally, spiritually, and then physically again. Why? To feel better. Objectively. Herbie, how's that even possible? Well, with your first podcast in 3D, first of all. With your only no nonsense podcast, brought to you through the Best Feeling Network, with your host Herbie on Palgo One. As we are remembering to allow these words enter in one ear and out the other, and observe our sense of self as that happens. Stretch your self-awareness like a muscle today. Feeling yourself at 6:26 a.m. or whatever time it may be. On Wednesday, August 4th, 2021, on Earth AD, stretching our self-awareness, making you feel so good, making us feel so good from the inside out. So many. Feeling so good from the inside out. What are we here to do on Warfare Wednesday? Look at our relationship with the world right now, with what's going on in the world. And the world's relationship with you. The world's relationship which you might be aware of. If you would with me, I invite you to do one more time. I promise, one more time. Pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles all the way alone. All the way alone as you one more time pretend that there's a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out. And to leave your swallowing muscles alone and observe your sense of self. Intellectuals. Intellectual. They say, have you heard the phrase, Have you heard the phrase, the more I learn, the less I know? There's a phrase that goes, the more I learn, the less I know. The more I learn, the less I know. What's that about? What's that about? The more I learn, the less I know. As in, maybe like the more you try to extend, the less you actually are able to truly touch. Indeed, it does seem that there is a spirit about us going outwards towards the world of wanting to learn, quote unquote, things that are not within ourselves, but rather without. It does appear that there is a spirit and an energy, a wisdom of the more we reach out, the less we are actually able to achieve what we are trying to reach. When we reach outwards towards things. When we try to reach outwards towards things and learn in a world without, don't we actually end up learning less than we actually thought we learned? Don't we end up actually knowing a lot less? How is that even possible? Well, doesn't all learning happen within? Doesn't your entire experience of even wanting to learn happen within, not without? Your body doesn't exist without. Your bones, your muscles, your mind, your brain does not exist without. In a literal sense, like if you think about the words, your brain does not exist without. Without what? The self, right? So your experience doesn't exist without, as in like your mind, your body, your soul, your heart. It does not exist in the outside world. It does not exist without. It does not exist like when you're looking out from the body in that without world, that world without you, because you're not, when you're looking with your eyes, right? You're not looking at you unless you're looking at a mirror, but even that's like an outside world thing. It's like a reflection, but your eyes are looking out at something, right? They're looking out. Are they looking out at a reality that is with you or without you? But you don't live in the world without. It's impossible to live in the world without. In a literal sense, as in a world where you construct it without you, when you can imagine that, you would not be able to do that in that world because it would not include you. And even you having that thought is able to happen because it includes you in that happening of that thought. As in, you created that thought. Even the idea of a world without you cannot be created for you without you. It's like a paradox. So should you try to live in the world without, don't you actually end up not living at all? Again, when you end up living in the world without, don't you end up not living at all? As in, that life is literally without you. You cannot imagine a life without. You do not live in a world without. You always live in the world within. So how might intellectuals destroy the world? Well, they live in the world without. And when you live in the world without, you can only allow, this vessel can only take you as far as the vessel will go. And should you be attending to only things without, then the vessel that is created, that the vessel that you use to understand the world without gets neglected, and you no longer have the machine to understand the world without because there was no focus on the world within, constantly trying to chase the world without. To put it another way, if you were trying to hold a life on top of a platter, trying to balance a life onto a platter, should it try to go in any one direction and care too much about being in any other direction in any place that is not within the realm of where this thing can stay upright, where this life can stay on balance in your hand, then once it leaves that realm of being within, it will now not be able to sustain itself long enough to be in the world The within world, the inside world, is necessary in order to even exist, to observe and enjoy the outside world. How might intellectuals destroy the world? How might intellectualism destroy the world? Well, doesn't it create a world completely based on the world? Doesn't it create a world completely based of the ideas and rules of a world without? So how is it going to sustain an entire population? How is it going to sustain an entire world that operates from within by trying to construct rules for it to play by that are rules created in a world without? How are we going to save? And how are we going to enjoy? And how are we going to improve? And how are we, most importantly, of course, how are we going to save? How are we going to save? How are we going to save all of these lives and this world that operates from a world within by constructing rules and trying to operate it from limitations in a world without? Answer me that, intellectuals. There is no world without. There is no world without. The world exists out there. We know that because of the world within. Because of this vessel, because of this body, because of your ability to remember the day before, because of your ability to have experiences, because of your ability to imagine a day in the future, constructed by rules that the world didn't define. They are there, but our inside world observed the entire universe, is observing the universe, is observing our livable experiences, are observing our world and creating rules and creating a world that we operate within. As in, there are parts of your room that you don't normally stand in. Why? Right? It's because you have this internal representation of this world, this internal map of what you do where. And that grew with you since you were a kid. You didn't have it from right when you're right when you're a little baby. You didn't have it immediately, but it grew with you, and you learned to develop it. And you learned to use it. This internal representation of this internal world, where you're able to even change your view around. Look at yourself in third person, or look at yourself literally in the eyes of another person, or look at yourself in multiple visions, or have 5 of you in the room. You could just imagine all those things, and it's true in the inside world, right? In the inside world. In the world within, everything is true. You have grasp over an entire world where there's not marred, or is not limited by any of these things that can prevent anything from being true. Like space and time. In this inside world, you have this magical ability, this self-awareness, this inside world where everything is true all at the same time. Is that not true? On the inside world, it's true. Of course it's true. The world itself, what? Plants? Green. Okay, green. Without the within world, without the inside world, it's just a green plant. There's no meaning. There's no meaning that it could be extrapolated. Oh, well, green means also this plant. Green means also this color of healing. Oh, green also means this video game. Green also means 3D. Green also means the idea of past. There would be none of that without this inside world. If you're just looking at the objective world, there's no meaning constructed. It's just an object. This is, okay, green. The only difference between this green and that green is that it's this plant and that it's this green, and then that plant is that plant and that's the green, but there's no relationship other than that. No, all these relationship, beauty, the fact that we can create meaning, the fact that we appreciate anything is because we actually create our world from the inside out. And so these intellectuals, by nature, it does not look at the world like that, does not look at the world from within, but looks at the world without, using our eyes. This intellectualism is using our eyes, right? As we use our eyes and we look at the world without to construct ideas that might possibly help us, with the world within, right? As we are using our eyes in the intellectual world, right? We're using our eyes to describe and to, well, first observe and then describe all these discrete things in space and time. Discrete as in unique, right? We are using our eyes and our sense of touch and our own physical body, our own without world, right? Our own without, as in our own world absent of our internal consciousness, of our internal non-linear web of consciousness that integrates our complex web of awareness within our body. Gluing together our awareness of our bottom left heel with our front right shoulder, with our back left ear, with our front right nose, with our front right nostril. Our ability to feel all of those things all in the same place all at once, although we're not even looking at them. We're not even able to see all those things at once, but we are able to know where they are in space and time. Unlike what we are able to do with our vision, right? Yet we construct our entire world and we attempt to understand and rule over this world, which we are only defining by using our most limited, well, not most limited in distance, but our most limited sense in terms of validating its truthfulness. As in your vision, when you're looking out at that mountaintop, you're looking out at that ocean, you're looking out at that skyscraper. Although you're using this complex web of information of your senses of your body around you to confirm that you're there, your eyes are limited in the sense that you are only seeing one side of that gigantic, majestic building. And you're able to confirm its position in a way that's still 2D and basically in the double digits compared to your kinesthetic experience, where you're able to feel not only your right finger, your right thumb, and your back left heel, your back left butt cheek, and your fifth rib down. Not only are you able to experience and look at those things if you wanted, but you're also able to place those things into your spatial awareness. You're able to understand those different objects and their spatial awareness in a way, and place them into the same spot together if you wanted, right? Your awareness able to mold its shape like that, and to place two different things in places that into seemingly impossible places, merge two different things and put them in one. You're able to feel two places at once in a literal sense using your own body, right? It's still what I mean by it's still double digits is that looking at a mountain and comparing your vision, your awareness of your mountain is like in the double digits compared to your abilities of your awareness of your own body, which you're able to literally experience two different things that are totally in two separate places in space and time. Your thumb and your back left heel. And that would be like in the billions. If we're talking power levels and you're looking at a mountain, that's like double digits compared to this like kinesthetic experience, which is like exponentially larger and grows exponentially faster. This experience with this within world, your ability to literally do your ability to literally feel and experience and know two things being placed at once, being two separate things, but being merged and being placed in the same space and time. Doing the impossible, your self-awareness. This world without intellectualism. Looking at the world without the self and attempting to construct a reality of that. Is there any hope of that? I mean, maybe a hope of surviving. Just barely. But doesn't our power extend so much more exponentially? Doesn't our power extend so much further when we look at the inside world? Which is the outside world, as we know. As we know that there is no observed world without the observer, as just as there is no observer without the observed world. They are one and the same, yin and yang. So the entire universe existing without you, how do you know this? Because there's an entire universe existing within you. But doesn't our power extend so much further and touch more of this infinite universe should we go inwards and describe it inwards? Don't we see that the more that we try to touch on the outside world, don't we see that we actually end up truly understanding and touching less on this outside world? Don't we see that as we are trying to describe and save and appreciate this outside world, using this outside world finite body of ours, limited by knowing these outside world things and this reality in this world without, knowing we are limited by those things. The more that we try to touch in this outside world, don't we end up touching less as we try to use this finite body and try to hug and encapsulate more of this outside world, when this entire outside world is already existing within our body, already surrounded by us, already encapsulated by us. Where does our power extend more? Intellectualism looks at vision. It looks at the without world. It looks at the objective world, the world without, right? The objective world. And intellectualism relies on vision for this objective world. And oftentimes vision in some religions, I believe Hinduism, relates vision to the word Maya, which is illusion. Illusion, as in you don't know if it's real, as in it's out there, the world without. You can't confirm it. That mountain out there that you're seeing with your eyeballs, it looks nice, but do you know if it's really out there or if you're just in a simulation? Do you really know things that are with your eyes, or are they just illusions? Do we really know things with our eyes, you know? Yes, we might be able to confirm it, we walk up to it, but do you really know things with your eyes, or do you have to go up and watch? You have to walk up and feel it. The same way that you know that your left arm, you're able to feel your left arm, but then also able to feel the weight of the body down the front of the spine, and then blink and able to feel all those kinesthetic experiences, all happening in different places, but able to be experienced by you bringing them all into the same place like some kind of superhero with your awareness. Are you able to know the mountain with your vision the same way you are able to know your body like that? Which one, if between those two, between this kinesthetic experience and this vision experience, between the two, which one is more like an illusion? So when we use vision, aren't we using vision to anticipate things? And don't intellectuals look at vision? Don't we use vision to establish objectivity? Don't we use this outside world that we confirm with our outside senses? Don't we use that to establish reality? But we look at those things. So, intellectuals looking at this outside world, this world without, by using our senses on the outside world to confirm them rather than our senses for the inside world, is kinesthesia. Using our senses of the outside world to define what's objective and all that kind of stuff. For using these outside world senses, like vision, is that usually used for feeling in the moment or for anticipating? When you're listening to music in the moment, do you open your eyes to look at the music? Or do you relax in the moment to hear the music? Isn't Maya usually associated with anticipating? With anticipating, you're anticipating what you want to eat. You're looking out for what you want to eat. You're looking out for a car that you don't want to hit. This vision is so good because it allows you to see things. I mean, light itself is the fastest thing in the universe. So our ability to receive this light is a great way to prevent ourselves from reaching certain doom, reaching certain our vision is often used to prevent us from hitting obstacles. What do they commonly say? I didn't see that coming, right? It's a common human phrase we use. We use our vision to keep us safe. Intellectualism, good for keeping humans safe, but does it prevent movement, or does it improve movement? Does intellectualism prevent movement or improve movement? Is sight used to anticipate, or is sight used to feel the moment? Is intellectualism used to prevent movement, or is it used to improve movement? Movement of what, Herbie? Well, maybe movement of the human spirit. Maybe movement of the human spirit to do things that it wants to do. This intellectualism. Does it prevent movement from humans doing what they want to do, or does it improve it? Intellectualism. what's the analogous to intellectualism to this world within? What's the analogous spirit of being observant and being problem solving towards the world within? If intellectualism is looking at the world without, what is looking at the world within? Well, what is the world within? What's the world without? The world without is this crazy, uncontrollable world that's happening to you. You just have to deal with it, right? This world without, right? There's people out there. There is money you need to get. There are places you want to see. There are people that want to be your friend, but there are people who want to not be your friend. There are movies you want to see. There are all these things in the outside world that concern you. There might be people you want to save. There might be suffering in the world you want to deal with. There might be happiness in the world that you want to engage with, that you want to get for yourself. There's all these outside world in the world without. There's all these things in the outside world that concern you, right? That end up concerning you, that you want or you want to deal with. Is that not the world without? Well, isn't there a world within that is also afflicting you with the same kind of stuff? Isn't there a world within with all these different things that concern you, right? Hunger, desire, lust, shame, desire for friendship, desire for love, resentment, hopes for the future, regret, pride, humility, charity. Aren't there all these things on the inside world that are demanding your attention, that are concerning you? Am I being too proud? Am I hungry? Have I been thirsty lately? Was I wise that time? Was I courageous that time? Was I correct? Was I wrong? All these inside worlds, questions that you end up concerning yourself with, concepts that you concern yourself with. Aren't we this consciousness that exists between these two worlds that are constantly aggressing on us, that are constantly giving us things to concern ourselves with? So what is intellectual towards this inside world? Well, if intellectualism is looking and anticipating and understanding towards this outside world, what is looking and anticipating and understanding this inside world? Well, is that not virtue? Because are there not things within your body, shame, regret, pride, ego, wrath? Aren't there things like that that end up holding you down? Aren't there times where your wrath got out of control and you ended up hurting somebody who you would have allowed you more freedom in the future? Freedom to what? Freedom to feel good, freedom to move, freedom to achieve, freedom to learn, freedom to grow, freedom to cherish, freedom to experience, freedom to enjoy. There might be all these people, all these things, all these great establishments, all these great institutions that you would be involved with should your human passions, should those things that were afflicting you from this inside world, should those things that were concerning you from the inside world, should those things have been understood, anticipated, and observed better, would that not have allowed you more freedom to engage with those things that you know deep down you wanted? Is that not virtue? Ew. Is that not virtue? Intellectualism looking at this world without, what is looking at this world within with that same kind of spirit? Maybe that's virtue. Maybe that's the ability to observe the inside world. Maybe that's the ability to observe, anticipate, and understand this inside world. As it is not you, but kind of behind you. It is you, but it's not you, as it's always happening to you. Right? This inside world. We're being bothered by the outside world as well as the inside world, and we're just forced to deal with both of them. It's intellectualism looking at this outside world without. But doesn't this outside world without only exist because of this inside world within? And isn't this inside world within providing us with just as many, if not more limitations, more annoying limitations than the outside world, right? As the inside world will mar you with limitations like shame, disgust with yourself, pride, ego, wrath, lust. Things where even if there was like billions of dollars in your face with the proper kind of inside limitations, you are restricted from movement. You are restricted from doing what you wanted to do. You're restricted from using that money towards doing something that would actually make you happy. when you have these inside rules placed on you. But what are those inside rules? Well, possibly human passions, things that we've understood for a while that we could be virtuous about. 2 worlds. There are 2 freaking worlds. 2 worlds. 2 worlds. There are 2 worlds that are attacking you on Warfare Wednesday. There are 2 worlds that are coming at you. They're coming at you with that second world. They're coming at you from that outside world, that world without. They're coming at you from that outside world. But they're also coming at you from this inside world. Your life is coming at you from this outside world, or this world without, in this world where all these objective things like nations and objects exist. But your life's also coming at you from this inside world, where those concepts are not marred by all these limitations, marred by all these ideas of objectivity. Your life is coming at you from both directions, from this without world and this from within world. So we can look and observe and understand this without world to anticipate and try to prevent our own freedom by we could try to save ourselves by preventing our own movement. As we try to intellectualize, observe, and understand this world that's coming at us from this outside world. Or we can try to look at this inside world and look at that and try to understand and anticipate this inside world, which actually improves freedom as opposed to prevents freedom. As there are always things in the outside world that are trying to prevent your freedom. But just like the outside world is limited, there's only so many things you can do about those limitations on the outside world. But there are also things that are preventing you from the inside world. But just like on the inside world, nothing's impossible in the inside world, even not being stopped by those things. We'll see you guys! If you would please pretend with me that there is a candle in front of the lips that you're trying to not put out, and to leave your swallowing muscles alone. Again, would you please pretend with me, with your first podcast in 3D, that there's a lit candle in front of your lips that you're trying to not put out. Oh, and to leave your swallowing muscles alone always. And to observe your sense of self as it happens, as we're learning to feel so good from the inside out, learning to free ourselves from the inside out, freedom to move from the inside out. Understanding, observing, and problem solving in the world. Understanding, observing, and problem solving in the world, as the world is always giving us problems and things to overcome. But so is the inside world. The inside world is always giving us problems that we're needing to overcome. The only difference is that we can actually understand these inside world ones. We can actually do something about these inside world ones. And that would be virtue. We'll see you guys tomorrow. This has been Herbie, this is Pagawan. No more today, guys. No more. No more. I guess we'll say it. Using our sense of the world to make sense of the world. World peace. Through inner world peace. Waking the worlds up. Physically, mentally, spiritually, then physically again. This has been your only no-nonsense podcast brought to you through the Best Feeling Network. This has been Herbie with Pau Go On. Making you feel so good from the inside out. Better than your morning would feel without. Feel the weight of the body. We'll see you guys tomorrow. And of course, thank you so much. Of course, thank you so much. In that godlike window of yours. That godlike creature thing you are. Feel amazing, guys.